So, Professor Puett, my question is, what are the ancient Chinese or Buddhist or sources from other ancient traditions or contemplative traditions where that direct us on how to have more energy or where we lose energy or how to live thriving lives where we interact with other people in a way that we have more energy? You shared so many great practices and ideas just now. If we want to learn more about them, what thinkers or what texts or what ideas can we turn to from the ancient world?
Yes, so one text I would recommend, which has been translated into English very, very well, is a text called The Inward Training. It dates probably to the 4th century BCE, and there's a wonderful translation by Harold Roth, Roth. And this is one of the early texts in the Chinese tradition that tries to rethink the entire world in terms of energies. Again, the Chinese term being qi. And it will say, let's imagine the entire world as gradations of qi, and then how would we live our lives to develop that qi? So that is one text I would recommend. Another text I would recommend highly is a work called the Zhuangzi. So this is Zhuangzi. And unlike the inward training that will really give you these techniques for practicing these energies and developing more energy, what Zhuangzi will try to do is give you a glimpse of a world in which you've done so. So it's trying to give you a glimpse of what it would be to be fully connected, fully like those spirits above, fully able to break from our limited perspectives, fully able to connect with things around us. And the goal of the text is, by entering into this text as you read it, it's giving you an experience of that life. And it will go to the grandest level, so it will give you the experience of being a bird, it will give you the experience of being different animals, and it will take you to the most mundane level. It will give you the experience of being a wheelwright, a butcher. And in all of these, it's trying to give you a sense of what it would mean to be fully connected. And then let me mention one other text, which is the Laozi, also known as the Tao Te Ching. Yeah. So the Laozi is Laozi. And this is another text that gives a different variation of this. And the Laozi is really concerned with how we would live our lives effectively were we to be following teachings like this. So a lot of its examples are actually about leadership. How could you be an effective leader were you to not be trying to control those around you and dominate those around you, but rather trying to gain the kinds of sensibilities we've been talking about that would enable you to connect? And what would that mean for leadership? And it's all about forcing us to rethink our understanding of what power is. And once we understand it, as it will very powerfully say, think of power as more like water than a rock. It's more about flow and connection than it is about domination and control. So I would say these three texts will give you an incredible sense of the techniques, the possible visions that would come from these techniques, and I'll even use a strong word, practically what it would mean to be an effective leader in the world were you to be following these ideas.
No, thank you. That's so beautifully put, and they're such rich texts, and there's so much in there to challenge us. And when you are like that rock where you're trying to dominate or control, you lose so much energy. When you're like water, you gain so much energy. And if there's anything leaders need, or just a person trying to be happy needs, is that energy, but it comes from that inner flexibility, which comes from not having as much ego.
Yes, precisely.
I think these texts are really aimed at processing our ego and letting us be in the world with less ego.
Yes.
Which gives us energy.
I think that is exactly right. Yes. So when we are thinking the way to make it in the world is to dominate the world and dominate all those around me, that is, as you said, pure ego. And that is always doomed. That is going to sap our energy. It will always build resentment among those around us. It means, by definition, we're not connecting with those around us, not working with those around us, and it is always doomed.
So we'll end on this high note of what dooms us, although in reality, it's also linked to the mirror image of that, what helps us thrive as individuals, to be happy, to be healthy, to have lots of energy, to have better relationships. And it's all the same practice. When people ask me, like, can you solve this problem of happy, healthy, energetic, better relationships? The great thing is that the answer is pretty much all the same for all of them. They're not separate practices for these separate issues. It's actually much easier than that. It's one practice, and it's a certain mindset that helps with all these things humans struggle with today. And I don't think there's ever been a more challenging time to work with our egos, to have more energy, because devices, our attention is in so many places. It saps our energy in ways I think these texts that you mentioned couldn't have even predicted how useful they would be hundreds and thousands of years later. I think today we should be reading them and doing these practices more than ever and sticking to those practices, because if before, I think you could survive not doing them. I think in today's world, you can't have energy and survive without this knowledge, without doing them, because we live in such challenging circumstances of a battle for our attention. And so much is tailored to us. Technology is tailored to us. Our egos are growing without us even realizing it. So thank you for those suggestions.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, these are texts that are arguing against a certain mode of being in the world, which they realize is sadly our typical mode. And yet, as you said, not only has it become our typical mode now, we've actually built an entire social world that actually pushes us into, from this perspective, our worst tendencies. Exactly. Yeah. Our worst tendencies to be egotistical, arrogant, competitive, narcissistic. And these are precisely the things that these texts would say will most drain our energies, and are precisely the practices that we're trying to work against in our daily lives.
Yeah, so I hope that you take what Professor Puett said seriously, that you look at these texts, and by doing that, you'll be giving that text the gift of doing something it has never done before. Only in the last 10 years are these texts helping us survive in the age of iPhones or ChatGPT. It's something that text didn't do before. But as you read those texts, as you do these practices, you're not only bringing more life to the text, you're expanding the potential it has to do good in the world. So through each of you reflecting on these texts, reading them, doing a meditation practice, taking these ideas very seriously, what you're doing is also empowering this text to have an effect on a world that's new, because the world is new. So that's hopefully to inspire you to look at these translations, look at these texts, make them, even if you read them for 10, 15 minutes each night, they'll make your life so much richer and open you up to new ideas.
That is beautifully put. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.